There's a place where clocks don't tell time, they deceive it. Where wristwatches freeze mid-second, where daylight slips away in minutes, and where people return older, or sometimes not at all. Locals don't mark calendars here. They whisper stories in hushed tones as if the very air remembers. These aren't campfire myths. Police reports, archival records, and shaky first-hand accounts speak of something real. Something that bends time like a fragile thread. Some who wander in emerge confused, swearing only moments passed. Others claim to have lived entire days that never existed on any clock. A few never come back. Tonight we're peeling back the layers of this mystery. From looping highways to vanished research teams, each story brings us closer to a truth that defies everything we understand. It begins with a lone hiker and a trail that wasn't supposed to exist. Alex had always trusted the wilderness. As an experienced hiker, he'd mapped more trails than most locals even knew existed. On a crisp autumn morning, he set out alone, aiming to explore a stretch of remote forest tucked deep beyond the usual paths. A place whispered about on niche forums for its odd magnetic readings. Nothing about that morning felt unusual. The air was sharp, clean. Birds chattered overhead. The rhythmic crunch of his boots on fallen leaves gave him the familiar sense of control that only isolation can bring. But about an hour in, something subtle shifted. At first, it was just his GPS. The small screen froze for a heartbeat, then began to loop back to the same coordinate no matter how far he walked. He assumed a poor signal, shrugged it off and kept moving. Yet, the forest around him felt strangely static. No breeze, no movement. Even the birdsong faded, leaving behind a silence so heavy it seemed to press on his ears. Then his watch stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The second hand stuck between ticks. When he tapped the glass, it resumed for a moment, then froze again. Alex laughed nervously, but beneath that laugh was a pulse of unease. He decided to keep track of time manually, estimating how long he'd been walking. That's when things truly began to warp. The light changed unnaturally. One moment the sun was high, slanting through branches. The next, the forest was bathed in a dim, late afternoon glow. Shadows lengthened like spilled ink. He checked his watch instinctively, still frozen. His internal sense of time faltered. Minutes began to feel like hours. He walked for what felt like half a day, only to find himself circling the same moss-covered boulder again and again. Each time, the sunlight shifted differently, as if reality were flipping through time like pages in a book. When he finally decided to turn back, panic crept in. His GPS showed him in two places at once. His compass spun slowly, ignoring north. The trees all looked the same, symmetrical in a way that felt deliberate. Every step seemed to both bring him closer to the trailhead and deeper into the forest simultaneously. He started talking aloud just to hear a human voice. By nightfall, if it was truly nightfall, Alex stumbled upon a clearing he didn't recognize. In the center stood a dead tree, perfectly split down the middle, both halves leaning away as if repelling each other. He didn't remember seeing it on any map. He set down his camera to rest. When he picked it back up minutes later, the timestamp had jumped forward 3 hours. The battery, fully charged that morning, was nearly drained. Confused, he pressed on. When Alex finally emerged from the woods, the world outside had moved without him. Park rangers, volunteers, and local police had been searching for 3 days. 3 days. Yet he insisted he'd been gone no more than 45 minutes. His skin was pale, his speech disoriented, but he was uninjured. He kept repeating, "I just followed the trail out." It was right there. Later, when investigators checked his camera, the footage was corrupted. Frames glitched, light flickered, and the timestamps contradicted themselves. Some clips were dated in the past, others in the future. The GPS logs formed a perfect loop. No start, no end. The official report labeled it disorientation. But one ranger, speaking off the record, said something that still lingers in whispered retellings. It was close to midnight when Daniel spotted the glow of the gas station. He'd been driving along a long, empty highway for hours, the kind of stretch where the radio goes quiet and the road begins to feel endless. The glowing sign was a relief. It wasn't part of any chain he recognized, just a faded logo, a buzzing fluorescent light, and a single attendant inside a small glass booth. He pulled in, filled his tank, and walked inside to pay. The air smelled faintly of cleaning fluid and something older, like dust that had been undisturbed for decades. The attendant, an older man with tired eyes, greeted him with a nod. Daniel handed over some cash, got his receipt, and stepped back out into the night. The sky was still, the highway empty. He climbed into his car, turned the key, and drove off. 5 minutes later, his headlights illuminated a familiar glow. The same gas station emerged from the darkness, the same buzzing sign, the same tired attendant watching through the glass. His first thought was that he'd somehow made a wrong turn. He checked the GPS, yet it showed a straight line behind him, no loops, no exits. He slowed, uneasy, then reluctantly pulled in again. This time, as he approached the pump, he noticed his fuel gauge. It showed the same low level as before, as if he had never filled up. Confused, he repeated the routine. He pumped gas, paid inside, and the attendant greeted him with the exact same nod in the exact same tone. Late night for a drive, huh? Daniel forced to laugh, but his hands were cold. He got back on the road, more alert this time. He watched the mile markers carefully, counted them. He drove for exactly 7 miles before something strange happened. The road signs blurred for a moment, the horizon bent unnaturally, and the world ahead snapped back into focus. And there it was again. The gas station, same flickering light, same crooked mailbox out front, same attendant, waiting. The third time, Daniel didn't even get out. He sat in the driver's seat, heart pounding, watching through the windshield. The attendant tilted his head slowly, almost expectantly. Daniel's radio crackled with faint static. He checked his phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Just a frozen clock screen showing 12:17 a.m., the exact time he had first arrived. He finally forced himself to pull in again. The moment his tires hit the lot, a sharp ringing filled his ears, like pressure changing in an airplane cabin. He grabbed his previous receipts from the glove box. They each showed a different time, 12:17, 1:42, 3:09. None of those matched his watch, which still stubbornly read 12:17. Daniel made it inside the station once more. The attendant gave him that same nod, his voice identical down to the rhythm of the syllables. Late night for a drive, huh? It wasn't just repetition. It was like someone pressing play on a recording. Eventually, Daniel drove off again, determined not to look back. He pushed the car harder this time, refusing to stop until sunrise. When he finally found another town, shaken and exhausted, he reported the incident. Days later, investigators checked the gas station surveillance tapes. What they found unsettled everyone. The cameras showed Daniel's car pulling in once. Not 3 times, once. The car idled at the pump for 3 hours. The attendant never moved. Daniel never got out. The receipts existed, real ink, real timestamps. But the footage insisted he had never left the lot. Locals weren't surprised. When asked, a trucker simply said, "That station's been like that for years." Folks don't talk about the loops, but they happen, especially at night. If the stories ended with hikers and drivers, they could be dismissed as hallucinations, exhaustion, or tricks of the mind. But the town's archives tell a different story, one written not in rumors, but in official records. Decades of reports, clippings, and handwritten notes form a paper trail that hums with unease, like a current running beneath the surface. The earliest entry dates back to 1892, a small locomotive, scheduled to depart at 6:45 a.m., inexplicably arrived at its destination 5 minutes before it left. Telegraph operators documented the timeline with precision. Investigators blamed clerical errors, but the conductor swore the ride lasted its usual duration. No one could explain the reversed timestamps, and the station ledger still bears the corrections written in shaking ink. In 1911, a farmer was found wandering the outskirts of town at dawn. He was identified easily. He'd lived there his entire life, but witnesses were stunned. He had aged 20 years overnight. His hair, once black, had turned silver. His skin was lined and sagging. Medical examiners couldn't find signs of disease or trauma. When questioned, the man claimed he'd simply gone to bed and woken up in the wrong morning. Then there's the case of the school bell. Archived audio recordings, though grainy, still exist. One spring afternoon in 1946, the bell rang to signal the end of class. According to every student and teacher present, it rang for less than 5 seconds. But nearby residents reported hearing the ringing stretch for a full hour, echoing across fields and streets in a long, sustained wail. Clocks inside the school recorded the usual dismissal time. Clocks outside were an hour ahead when the ringing stopped. Over the years, similar patterns emerge again and again. Coroner reports with time of death listed before discovery, people found wandering with memories out of sequence, and clocks in the same building showing wildly different eras. Police reports file them away as inconsistencies. Archivists, however, began to quietly label them. Under a separate heading, temporal distortions. Flipping through these records feels less like reading history and more like watching a crack slowly widen across reality. And among all these dusty pages, one case stands out disturbing, not for its strangeness alone, but for its intimacy. It involved a family who had just moved into town. One quiet night, they went to sleep like any other, and woke to find that time had abandoned them. When the McAllisters moved into their new home on the edge of town, they thought they were stepping into a quieter life. The house itself was nothing unusual: 2 stories, creaking floors, a porch that faced the woods. It had been vacant for years, but the price was too good to ignore. On their first night, everything felt ordinary. They unpacked a few boxes, had dinner, and went to bed beneath the soft hum of distant crickets. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows just as expected, but something was wrong. The newspaper on the porch bore a date 3 days ahead. Their phones were flooded with missed calls and worried messages. The voicemail light on the landline blinked like a heartbeat. At first, they thought it was a printing error. Then they noticed the clock on the wall, the oven display, and their phones. All confirmed the same impossible truth. They hadn't woken up the next day. They'd woken up 3 days later. Confusion turned to panic. They called friends and neighbors, desperate for explanations. Strangely, no one seemed alarmed. Neighbors said they had seen the family outside every day, watering plants, checking the mail, even waving politely. But the McAllisters swore they had no memory of it. To them, they had simply gone to bed and opened their eyes the next morning. The house offered more unsettling evidence. In the kitchen, food in the fridge had been opened, cooked, and eaten. Plates were stacked neatly in the sink. A board game lay unfinished on the coffee table, mid-turn, as if frozen in time. Bedrooms were slightly rearranged, drawers opened, shoes moved. Yet every door and window remained locked from the inside, exactly as they had left them. Medical tests later showed nothing unusual, no drugs in their system, no signs of head trauma, no collective hallucination. But their sense of reality had fractured. It wasn't just the gap in their memory, it was the knowledge that for those 3 days, the world kept moving without them, and something or someone had been inhabiting their lives. The children, normally playful, grew quiet. They began to refer to the other nights, though they couldn't explain what that meant. The parents started leaving lights on through the night. Every creak in the hallway, every flicker of the porch lamp became a source of dread. They tried to keep routines, but nothing felt grounded anymore. 2 weeks later, they packed what they could and left the house without a formal goodbye. Furniture, Toys and personal belongings were abandoned, as if the house itself had swallowed their sense of ownership. When the real estate agent came to assess the property, she didn't flinch at their story. She simply listened, nodded, and said something that would linger with them long after they left. It's not the house, it's the place. The McAllister home remains unsold to this day. Neighbors say they sometimes see lights flickering inside at odd hours, as if someone is still there, quietly continuing a life the family can no longer remember. The town's mysteries eventually drew the attention of more than curious wanderers and frightened families. A scientific research team, 7 specialists in physics, geology, and temporal mechanics, arrived with equipment meant to strip myth from measurable reality. Their goal was simple: map the anomalies, gather hard data, and prove that the strange stories were nothing more than environmental glitches. They set up their base near the tree line where most disappearances were reported. On the first day, the team placed 3 synchronized atomic clocks in different locations around the perimeter. These clocks, accurate to the billionth of a second, would reveal any deviations in time with precision. For the first 12 hours, everything remained stable. The logs are dry, methodical. Clock A synchronized, Clock B synchronized, Clock C synchronized. No drift detected, but by the following evening, anomalies began to surface. Clock A showed the local time, except it had jumped ahead to the year 2028. Clock B lagged inexplicably, reading 1996 down to the date. Clock C, the one placed deepest in the woods, stopped entirely. No malfunction could be found. Its components were intact, its battery full. It had simply ceased to tick, frozen as if time itself had lost interest. Their audio logs capture a gradual shift from confident curiosity to anxious disbelief. We're seeing overlapping temporal signatures. That's not possible. B says we're in 96, A says we're 10 years ahead. C is just dead. It's like time is running on different tracks depending on where you stand. On the second night, they noticed stranger phenomena. Cameras placed around the site recorded time-lapse distortions, shadows stretching and snapping back, clouds reversing direction, even the team members appearing blurred, as if frames were missing. Their voices on the recordings overlapped with echoes of themselves, a half-second delayed. Still they persisted. They mapped electromagnetic fields, seismic vibrations, even air pressure fluctuations. The data became increasingly nonsensical, contradicting itself hour by hour. Some readings suggested time loops, others suggested temporal layering, as if multiple moments were stacked on top of one another. On the morning of the third day, all contact with the team was lost. When local authorities arrived at the campsite, they found everything in place: tents, food supplies, instruments. It looked as if the team had simply stood up mid-task and walked away. Security footage recovered from their base cameras provides the only clue. It shows the 7 researchers calmly packing up their equipment. They form a single line and walk toward the woods, their posture relaxed, their faces blank. Then, halfway between 2 camera angles, they vanish, not fading or walking out of frame, but disappearing mid-step, as if the tape itself had been cut. The final audio log was found on a recorder left near Clock C. A whisper, almost drowned by static, repeats one sentence. Deep within the woods, past where the usual trails vanish and the air grows unnervingly still, lies the place the research team called the Center. It's not marked on any map. There's no natural path leading to it, yet those who stumble upon it describe the same clearing with uncanny precision. The ground there is unnaturally smooth, almost as if something had pressed down from above. Trees form a perfect circle around the perimeter, their branches arching inward like the ribs of a colossal creature. Step inside and the first thing you notice is your compass spinning wildly, refusing to settle in any direction. GPS devices shut down. Radios pick up distant voices speaking words out of order, like language trying to reassemble itself. Witnesses speak of a strange double sensation upon entering, Their bodies feel heavier, as if days have passed but their minds race, sharp and alert, like only seconds have gone by. One visitor described it as aging and rewinding at the same time. Others report their watches jumping back and forth unpredictably, counting seconds twice, then skipping minutes entirely, and then there are the shadows.
They don't follow the light.
They stretch in the wrong direction, move independently, and occasionally lag behind, like the world is buffering. Stand perfectly still, and you might see your own silhouette slowly drifting away before snapping back into place. The most unsettling account comes from a hunter who entered the clearing by accident. He claimed he saw himself standing across the space, same clothes, same posture, but unmoving, like a reflection without a mirror. When he blinked, the figure was gone, leaving only the rustle of branches behind. Locals who know of the clearing refuse to go near it. Some call it cursed, others sacred. A few whisper that the ground itself remembers different times, overlapping them like transparent layers. Standing in that clearing, it isn't just that time behaves strangely.
It's that reality itself seems
Fractured. Shadows rebel, directions collapse, and the sense of linear existence begins to unravel. When something defies understanding, the human mind builds stories to fill the gaps. The clearing, the loops, the disappearances, they've all sparked theories, each more unsettling than the last. Some lean on science,
others are secrecy.
a few on something far darker. The most common explanation is that the town sits on a rift in space-time, a tear, or perhaps a fold, where reality buckles like fabric. The atomic clock readings, reversed timestamps, and distorted recordings could be symptoms of two timelines brushing against each other. In this view, the clearing isn't supernatural, it's a fault line where moments slip out of order like loose stones in a wall. Others point to government experiments. Old locals remember military trucks on back roads decades ago, fences erected overnight, men in plain suits carrying equipment deep into the forest. According to these whispers, the clearing might be the site of a classified temporal field test gone wrong, a project abandoned but never contained. A more geological theory suggests a natural electromagnetic anomaly, perhaps tied to rare mineral deposits beneath the surface. These fields could interfere with human perception, electronics, and even biological rhythms, creating the illusion of time distortion. But that doesn't explain the synchronized testimonies, or the shadows that move against the sun. And then there's the theory that unsettles even the skeptics: something sentient is at work. Not a creature in the traditional sense, but time itself behaving like a living entity. Watching, testing, looping travelers like prey caught in invisible nets. The center isn't just a glitch, it's the hunting ground of something that doesn't operate by human rules. This idea lingers because of the patterns. People aren't just lost, they're returned, disoriented, aged, or with memories rearranged as if they'd been handled and placed back. The loops feel intentional, the clearing feels aware. Each theory offers a piece, but none fit cleanly. If it's a rift, why does it act selectively? If it's a field, why does the human double? If it's sentient, what does it want? No one has answers. Just fragments stitched together by fear and speculation. The tape was found in the attic of an abandoned home near the edge of the forest, coated in dust, tucked inside a weathered box with no labels. It was an old VHS cassette, the kind that shouldn't have survived the humidity of the woods for so long. Yet when investigators played it, the footage was almost disturbingly clear, as if time hadn't touched it at all. The video begins abruptly. No opening shot, no sound of someone pressing record. Just the shaky view of a handheld camera moving through dense forest at night. The person filming doesn't speak, but their breathing is audible, slow, measured, almost rehearsed. The trees are dense, but something about them looks wrong. Shadows stretch too far, swaying against a still breeze. 30 seconds in, the sky flashes from night to day in an instant. The forest is suddenly bathed in pale morning light.
Then just as quickly, it snaps back to night.
This happens several times, faster and faster, until it feels like the camera is caught between two moments fighting for dominance. Somewhere in the distance, a bell begins to ring, not in a steady rhythm, but erratically. 3 chimes, a pause, 2 more, a long single toll that seems to echo from multiple directions at once. The camera tilts upward. Through the canopy, the stars appear scattered and rearranged, as if constellations have been shuffled like cards. Then comes the figure. In the clearing ahead, someone or something stands completely still, mid-step, like a paused frame in a film. The figure's face is obscured by darkness, but their posture mirrors the camera operator's perfectly, down to the slight tilt of the head. The camera work trembles for the first time. The lens zooms in slowly, but before any detail is revealed, the figure blinks out of existence, replaced by empty space. Experts later noted that during this moment, the audio splits. One channel continues the ambient forest sounds, while the other plays those same sounds again, but delayed by exactly 3.7 seconds. It's as if 2 overlapping realities were recorded at once. The footage continues deeper into the woods. Occasionally, the time of day changes without warning. The camera's internal clock displays nothing, no timestamp, no date, not even zeros. At the 20-minute mark, the video abruptly restarts. No fade, no glitch. Just a clean loop back to the first frame, as if the tape had been designed to never end. Forensic analysts tried to trace the origin. The tape stock dates back to the late 1980s, but the camera technology used appears to be at least a decade newer. The forest path shown doesn't match any known mapped trails, though locals insist it looks familiar. Perhaps the most disturbing moment comes in the final frame. As the video loops for what seems like the 100th time, the camera stops moving. Slowly, almost deliberately, it turns away from the forest toward the viewer. The lens tilts down, as if whoever filmed it knew someone would watch. And then for a fraction of a second, a reflection glints in the lens, one that doesn't match the operator's movement. Time is the quiet architect of everything we understand. It gives shape to our lives, turns seconds into memories, and draws the invisible line between what was and what will be. We trust its rhythm without question, every heartbeat, every sunrise, every ticking clock, reinforcing the illusion of order. But in this place that trust collapses, the stories you've heard tonight aren't legends passed around campfires. They're fragments, pieces of a puzzle scattered across decades. A hiker lost in minutes that stretched into days. A gas station that repeated itself like a broken record. Families slipping through cracks in the calendar. Scientists disappearing into a clearing that shouldn't exist. And a tape that records a reality even the camera couldn't fully contain. No one has ever truly explained what's happening there. The theories, space-time rifts, failed experiments, geological anomalies, something alive beneath the surface, are all attempts to name the unnameable. Each offers a glimpse, but none hold the full picture. Because how do you explain a place where the rules that bind existence simply stop applying?
Perhaps that's the real horror.
Not monsters lurking in the shadows, but the idea that time itself can betray us. That something so fundamental, so constant, could bend, pause, or loop without warning. That you could step into a clearing and find yourself out of sync, not just with the world, but with yourself. The town still stands. The forest still waits. Travelers still pass through unknowingly, their watches ticking confidently, unaware they're approaching a place that doesn't follow the same script as the rest of reality.
Most leave untouched.
Some don't. And a few returns changed, their memories frayed like old films. Every story leaves behind the same lingering question. What if time isn't broken there at all? What if it's revealing its true nature, and everywhere else is the illusion? Late at night, when the world is quiet and the ticking of the clock becomes almost too loud, it's hard not to wonder if time can fold in on itself in one forgotten corner of the world.
Who's to say it can't happen anywhere, to anyone?
So if you ever find yourself on a lonely road or deep in the woods where the air feels still and wrong, pay attention.
Watch your watch.
Listen for bells that don't follow rhythm. Notice the shadows,